It is not every day that convicted murderers reach out to youth, pleading with them not to make the same mistakes they did. Mistakes that triggered death and misery to everyone and everything they encountered. Now, armed with words, not guns, offenders in the Plus unit at the Wabash Valley Correctional Facility are giving teens a chilling look at what to expect if they follow their paths. They receive permission to tell their stories in their own words in the place they call home, maximum security prison. The video is called Keeping It Real, completely written and produced, including music, by offenders.
This is Keeping It Real, a message for today's youth. In the lies and language of today's youth, sayings such as ride or die, paper chasing, ball till you fall, get it how you live, sex, money, and murder. All are but glorified phrases that makes bad behavior or criminal activity seems cool, even clever. In other words, being hard, so to speak, has become a way of life. But the fact of the matter is, these phrases only serves as the kind of influences and behavior that can lead you down a road that will end in the loss of your freedom, family, friend, or maybe even your life. You may not know me, but I'm currently serving a 75-year sentence here at the Wabash Valley Correctional Facility. And in the next 30 minutes, I'll be exposing you to the day-to-day routine of prison life through the eyes of 3 young men who will tell you their stories and give you some insight into the influences and behavior that led them to prison. And they will show you that if you don't do the right thing, you will either end up dead, or maybe if you're lucky, you'll end up in prison. Maybe even my next door neighbor. My name is Danny Ramsey, and this is Keeping It Real. And if you want to keep it real, then come with me and let me show you what keeping it real is really about.
My mom was 19 years old, about 7 months pregnant when my father first went away to prison. So when she gave birth to me, that day was, pretty much like the rest of the days of my childhood. She loved me, she prayed for me, and she took care of me all by herself. That's why I love her. That's my mama. She couldn't be with me 24 hours a day, Plus, we moved around a lot, so it was hard to really make friends or keep friends for a long time, All I wanted was some place or something that I could belong to, you feel me?
Man, I grew up poor, right? My pops, he was always gone, man, out working or whatever, Most of our meals was welfare provided. But Mom, she made magic happen with what she had to work with, man. But despite my mother's love and her guidance and my father's punishment and correction, I still strayed because I wanted to be my own man. I was probably about 7 years old when I first smoked weed. It wasn't long after that I started, experiment with other drugs and alcohol, whatnot. I'd say by the time I was 15, I done tried weed, alcohol, pills, LSD, opium, cocaine, just, you name it, man. Anything was around, I was trying it, right? But I started selling weed to support my habits, you know, and I was doing all right, nothing to brag about, but you know, I noticed I never really had no positive male role model in my life. You know, my only role model was my big brother, Mike. Mike, man, that's my guy there. You know, I always wanted to be like him when I was young. But the problem was he was always in trouble himself. You know what I mean? Juvenile, boys' school, all that. So, like Big Bruh, I started getting a little wilder. I was always fighting, partying, getting in trouble, period, you know.
What's up? My name is Brandon Cerna. I'm 30 years old, and I was born in Phoenix, Arizona. I grew up in a home with my mom. It was both my mom and my dad. You know, I'm the second oldest of 4 boys and 2 girls, and my mom pretty much raised me most of my life. She worked 8 to 10 hours a day, man. Sometimes 6 days a week, just to put food on the table and pay the bills, right? She still needed help from welfare. You know, we had it so bad that some days she had to go without just so we could, you know. And I can remember walking in on her in her room a few times and saw her broke down crying, man. You know, crying because she was tired of struggling. A dad? Yeah, I had a dad, you know, if that's what you want to call him. He was so much a dad that he got me to smoke weed for the first time when I was 7. My mom left him because all he wanted to do was get high and sell drugs. And I had a stepdad too, and the only good thing I can say about him is, you know, he gave me my baby brother and baby sister. Other than that, man, he wasn't nothing but a man who showed me how to get drunk and beat on women.
Now, as far as male influences go, you know, I had an uncle who's a lawyer, but the rest of the men in my family was either deadbeats, dope fiends, or locked up in prison, you know? So I looked up to the rappers, dudes I seen in the videos, gangster movies, players with all the women, the thugs and the goons everybody was scared of, you know? And the hustlers and the ballers in the hood getting money. That's what I wanted to be like, period.
But it wasn't long, I was skipping school, you know, doing what we do, you know? And man, it was like, after a while, I started running with a certain clique of guys, you know, and it just started out with just friends, you know, hanging out, good buddies, you know, kicking it. But ended up, we kind of started forming a little clique. And one day we got jumped by some dudes across town. They had ball bats and bars. One dude even had some nunchucks, you know, but they whooped us pretty good, man. My elbow got shattered, you know, I had to have reconstructive surgery. It was after that was a big turning point, man, because after that, I was like, man, I ain't gonna let this happen again, you know, so I went and got me a pistol.
I did good, you know what I mean, when I was in elementary school, whenever I showed up and actually applied myself, you know what I'm saying? For real though, underneath all the tripping and the nonsense I was on, I was a bright student for real though. You know, in the 5th grade, I was on the quiz bowl team. I was in the class, the first class to graduate from the DARE program at my elementary school, you know, even though by then though, I was already running wild, you know what I'm saying? Hanging out all night with the homies, getting high, smoking weed, drinking everything, drinking gin, Boone Farm, you know, stealing cars, dropping bricks on the oncoming cars from the viaduct, just all the way just gone, man, didn't even care.
You know, I was freshman Prince, man, but I wasn't interested in nothing school had to offer. I ended up getting interested when I stole $350 from my English teacher in a set of janitor's keys one night. And I took them keys and I broke into the school, stole all the snack bars, candy, in the pool, destroyed a few classrooms, and spray painted my gang name over a couple walls. A couple days later, man, I got busted by the principal and she called the police and my mom from work. And man, I can still remember her face to this day when she got to school. And it went from all bad to ugly, man. I figured out that I was pretty good at stealing. You know, I took advantage of friends, stores, whoever, man. It didn't matter. You know, when we moved for the 4th time to a small town outside of Phoenix, I joined a gang and started smoking weed and hanging heavy in them streets. You know, basically, I was out running around looking for trouble to get into.
I was already running away from the crib and gang banging by the time I was 11 years old. And you really couldn't tell me nothing unless I wanted to be told something, you feel me? Now, getting put on punishments and getting whoopings and all that didn't even matter to me, you feel me? Yeah. I remember the first time, my first encounter with the police was when my mama called them on me because she didn't know what to do. You know what I mean? She needed help because I was out of control.
I know that the night that all this stuff happened, man, I was partying, you know, we was pretty messed up. I walked home, and on my way home, I went by this house, and this dude, he ran around with them dudes, you know, and didn't really like him, you know, but I thought, man, I'm gonna scare this cat, you know. So I planned on shooting this pistol off when I went by there. Well, I planned on shooting all the whole clip off, but I shot one time, and that one shot, it was like sobering, man. It was so loud. It was about 3 in the morning. You know what I mean? So wasn't nothing else going on. It was so loud. It sobered me up, and I ran home. Come to find out, man, that one shot ricocheted off some stuff and hit this man in his face while he was asleep. It was his kid's father. Man, yeah.
My teenage years, my adult years on the streets was pretty much a life lived with no boundaries, you know. I was addicted to the game, you know. I lived for the excitement, the control, the power, the attention that came with being in the streets, that came with being a gangbanger, that came with being a hustler, you know what I mean? I love selling dope just as much as I love the money, the women, the clothes, the cars, you know. When we had beef with a rival gang, I was the one that was canceling all the beef. You know, when you see me coming with pistols, I was coming to kill you because I figured that they was gonna kill us, so I'd rather get them first, you know. I was the type of dude, if you had something and I wanted it, I was coming to get that, you know. And if I had something and you tried to take it from me or you took it from me, then I was coming to get you, you know. And I was a very violent, very selfish, very manipulative, selfish individual. You know, I was a monster. You know, and that way of thinking, that way of being, that way of doing is what landed me on death row, and I accept full responsibility for that. I don't blame nobody for me being here, you know. And when I was on death row, it was like a dark cloud just hung over my life. You know, I remember the first day I was there, they put me in a cell with a paper gown, you know, threw me in a cell that's reserved for men who got 30 days left to live, you know. So I had a lot of time to think about and just imagine what the last moments of my life would be like before I was executed. And it was one of the most frightening, depressing experiences that I've ever been through. The most shameful, most embarrassing time, for sure. You know, 7 men was put to death while I was there, you know, and men that were better men than I was. You know, I can remember coming out for rec one time and sitting in front of a guy who was in the same cell that I was put in when I first got there, with all these different menus from local restaurants, and helping him pick out his last meal. Like, just thinking, this is crazy, you know. And in the back of my mind, I just always had hope. Always had faith that, you know, that I would be delivered from this situation, you know. And I remember that man who I helped pick out his last meal was executed, you know, 10 hours before I was released from death row. You know, and when I was released from death row, I never thought that I would miss being on death row, but that's exactly how I felt when I went to the SHU. You know, it's like SHU is basically a unit that's reserved for the most dangerous, most influential, most violent offenders, most violent inmates in the state of Indiana, you know, according to the DOC. And at the time, I fit that classification, you know, gang banging, ruthless, selfish, didn't care about nothing, you know. If you wasn't with me, you was against me. It was get down or lay down, you know. And just being there in that one-man cell and people on either side of you banging on the doors, yelling, threatening each other, woofing, flooding their stools, throwing urine and feces all out on the range. And some cells, the toilet stools is on a 15-minute timer. Just imagine that. Just imagine being in a cell or a bathroom where the stool don't flush but every 15 minutes, and you got to schedule everything around that, you know. And when I came out the cell, was handcuffed behind my back, walk you around on a leash. Sometimes when you shackle, they got to run the leash through the shackles, and if you move the wrong way or you bump into an officer or anything, you might slip and fall and bust your face, you know. You know, so it was just, it was crazy, man. Going into a shower this wide, you know. Sometimes the water's so hot you can't even stand under it. Sometimes it's so cold you can't stand under it. You know what I mean? Going on visits where your family drive 8-9 hours to come down and see you behind a bulletproof piece of glass on a phone with bad reception. You know, now it's on a close monitor screen. You know what I mean? So you can't even touch your people. You know, and sometimes they drive all that way and they get down here to the prison and they tell them that the prison is on lockdown. You know, and it's crazy, man. And you can't even tell them that the prison is on lockdown. By the time they left, it's too late, because you only get a 20-minute phone call a day, you know. Not even a day, a week. And you locked in your cell 23 hours a day on a good day. You know, sometimes you don't even get to come out at all when you lock down. You know, going 2-3 days before you get to take a shower. You know, so just being there, man, and going through that, man, that was like probably the darkest, lowest point in my life. You know, because it was just the isolation, the depression that set in, the separation that set in from all the relationships, you know. And it's just a dark feeling. And I told myself, man, if and when I ever get to come off of this situation right here, I ever get to come out of this unit, I got to do something different with my life. Whatever it is, it's got to be better than the past.
That's crazy. You talking about visits and your family coming, man. You know, I don't even have any family in Indiana, man, but my son, you know, and he ain't old enough to come drive and see me. You know, my mom is 2,000 miles away, and I've only seen her once since I've been in prison. I've been in prison almost 7 years, you know.
You know, my girl, her mama worked with this dude that got killed in my case, man. I didn't know it, but man, she hated me after that, man. I tried to call her house, and she accepted my call and just to cuss me out. You know what I mean? I don't know what I'd do without my moms, man. Cause when it comes to friends, like I said, man, friends, they've been gone, man. You know?
Ain't that crazy, though?
Yeah. When you're out there, they right there with you, man.
Yeah, talking good, wasn't they?
Oh, it's my boy, it's my dog, man. We riding out. Writing letters, man, they don't answer.
See the mailman dropping letters off the other dude's mails.
You trying to play it off like you sleep when you trying to play it off like you sleep when that dude mail pass and you won't feel embarrassed about not getting no mail.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to go through that to get to, you know, where we is now in the cross program, you know, doing something different
That's what it's about
with our lives, right? What made you decide to, you know, try to change it around and start getting on the straight path in here, man?
Man, to be honest, it was just I was tired of butting my head against the wall, man. You know, cause I keep doing the same thing. I ain't gonna lie. I mean, keeping it real.
Yeah.
I was in here drinking. I was in here using drugs, and I got to that point, man. I said, man, my mama, she drives 3 hours to come down here and see me, man. She's the only thing I got. She my ride. You know what I mean? So if I got in trouble for messing with the drugs or alcohol and got my visits taken and stuff, that would break her heart, man.
That's the worst right there.
I couldn't do that, you know what I mean? So I had to leave all that alone, man. Then everything else started falling in place. I come to the PLUS program, and I started thinking a little differently, you know what I mean? I started applying the stuff that I was wanting to apply. And then everything else started falling into place too, you know what I mean? Because you don't think about these core values and stuff when they're talking about, you know, oh, these are the core values of the PLUS program. I didn't even know what some of them meant, you know what I mean? I started looking them up and realizing, and that's just, it's good morals and values for us in our everyday life, man, period.
Yeah, I can relate.
You know, and I remember a law library clerk who worked on the SHU. You know, he was an aide in this unit called the PLUS program. I didn't know what it was. He was like, man, I know it's a loan shop, but here, you know, slid me application. I filled it out, sent it back, and they accepted me. You know, after a year of being on the SHU, they released me, and I was sent to the PLUS program. I went from death row to general population at the worst penitentiary in the state to being in the supermax unit to coming to an honor dorm. So I walk on the unit, this dude's sewing and quilting, and I'm like, oh, they ain't about to turn Filthy Phil into Martha Stewart. That ain't happening, you know. So I sat back for a couple weeks and just chilled and seeing what was what. And after a while, man, I got involved with a project. The first project I ever did was we made lap quilts for a senior citizens home, a rehabilitation wing, man. And I remember when they sent us the thank you letters and the pictures back from this unit, the sense of joy that I had, the feeling that I had, a happiness, it was something that I never experienced on the streets. And I had everything on the streets, but I was never that happy, you know. So that joy, I wanted more of that. So I started chasing that high and just started staying up late nights, you know, making stocking caps and just turned into pretty much a quilt zombie. You know, we make quilts for homeless people, for battered women's shelters, for veterans, for the families who lost their sons and daughters in Iraq and Afghanistan. And it's been an honor, you know, something that I was ashamed of, that I used to be concerned about the stigma. Now I love it, you know, and this program has saved my life, you know what I mean? It's gave me purpose. And being here has given me the opportunity to go through Cairo's prison ministry, to grow closer in my faith with my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. You know, it's given me the opportunity to become a volunteer suicide watch companion, and just to sit with men who've either attempted to commit suicide or talked about committing suicide, and I can relate to that on a personal level. You know, I've been there. I've lost family and friends to suicide, you know, and being able to be a librarian, to go visit with the guys in the infirmary who are terminally ill and praying with these men. It just give me a greater appreciation for life, man. And if it wasn't for this Plus program, I would be all the way lost, man. It redirected the whole course of my life, man, and I thank God for that. And I just thank God that His plan is what gave me hope. It's what gave me a future.
Man, keeping it real, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. You get talked to and treated like trash. Then when you say something about it, you get in trouble. Man, I get to see my mom once every 2 weeks, if I'm lucky. Then I might get to talk to her on the phone every now and then, man. I don't know how to explain it. It's like you're surrounded by all these people, but you feel so alone. I mean, it's a shame it took me coming to prison before I opened my eyes to evaluate myself. You don't have to do this though. You can learn from our mistakes. All you need to do is be yourself. Don't worry about being tough and cool and all this stuff, because most of these people you're trying to impress, they don't care nothing about you. If I would have just stopped to think before I did what I did, then a man wouldn't have lost his life. I wouldn't be sitting in prison for life.
You ever seen the TV show Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, where Will gets in trouble and has to go live with his aunt and uncle? Well, I was the real Fresh Prince. And I was given every opportunity to change and start making the right decisions. My whole purpose of coming to Indiana was to make something out of myself, graduate from high school, and find my place in life. You know what? I found it all right. Right here in prison. Now, and I live in a cage the size of a bathroom with another man, like an animal, for real. I gave up my freedom, my privacy, my family, my loved ones, and my son, man, for what? To keep it real? For them streets? Are you serious? Man, the reckless lifestyle I was living had me looking over my shoulder for the police, people trying to rob and kill me. This ain't keeping it real at all. And this ain't what you want.
Glad to see you wore your clean drawers today.
Oh yeah, just for special visitors. You know my prison drawers don't look nothing like this. Hey, tell him make sure you. Should fold the sheet or fold some towels?
Go ahead and fold that towel there.
I can fold this. Before we go our separate ways, let me tell you about another young person who was raised by a single mother in a home where they didn't have much. And the greatest male influence on this young person's life growing up was always locked up or out running the streets. That young person is my little brother. You see, he went in a different direction than I did. He stayed in school, stayed away from the street life. Now he has a good job, a nice house, a beautiful wife, and 3 wonderful kids. You know, the one thing that nobody can take away from you is your ability to make a choice, positive or negative. The choice is yours. See, what I hurt so many people over, what I sold my soul for was an illusion. It was a false success. But if you really want to be successful, then you gotta make better choices than the ones I made, because that lifestyle leads you down one of three paths: a loss of freedom, empty existence on the streets, or death. You know, I lost a lot of family, friends, and peers to drugs, alcohol, and senseless violence. And I'm sure some of you have too. So if you can fix a mistake that you made in life, do it while you still have a life. Take a stand for yourself. Look inside yourself, see what you're missing, and seek it out. Because you're more than your body, more than the color of your skin, or the things that you have, or the things that you don't have. You feel me? You got the power to make a difference because you matter. You don't have to come to prison to go to college. You don't have to come to prison to find peace when you can make peace in your community right now. Feel me? So keep working hard. Stay on your grind. Love yourself. Don't be afraid or ashamed to ask for help. And no matter what happens, always keep the faith. That's keeping it real. Yeah, keeping it real. Wabash Valley, Ivy Tech, 2009. It's for the youth. Smile, but inside I'm hurting. Future was so uncertain. My family dipping in and out. I hope they don't desert me completely. Sweep me off my feet, defeat me, beat me into submission. Hear my screams fade into a whisper. Listen, my inner child can't even shed a tear. Desensitized to homicide, my mama cried for years because she blamed herself for all my wrongs and my mistakes. My alter egos, evil deeds who feeds off greed and hate. I used to be the thug you never was and can't imagine. My little brother out there stressing, trying to raise his family. It's difficult for him to face the fact the man a slammer. Facing life in prison, no parole, I'm off the road, oh. I got a second chance at life and I'm gonna make it right. I pray for brighter days to come after the darkest nights. I gotta laugh to keep from crying, you let the peace be still. Locked in a cage so full of rage, but I'm gonna keep it real time. Keys passing me by, are you dying to live or are you living to